Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Murder and the Money Pit by Renee George, narrated by Dara Rosenberg. Chapter 1. I have never been an impulsive person. I look both ways before crossing the street, I test the water with my toe before wading in, and I don't buy dilapidated two-story rural houses. Oh, wait. Yes, I do. The decrepit home on 12 acres of wooded land outside Moonrise, Missouri, was mine-ish. I'd just signed an as-is rent-to-own 15-year contract with Merle Peterson, a property developer, and had given him a $10,000 down payment. What have you done, Lily Mason? The place needs a lot of work, Merle said. His bushy eyebrows were as thick and long as the hair on his head was thin and short. It hasn't had any work done on it in a long time. I was planning to fix it up myself for a cushy resale price, but Greer's a hard man to say no to. Greer's a good man, I said. One of the best. Parker Knowles was a mechanic in Moonrise. He owned a small garage called the Rusty Wrench. He was the very first person I met when I came to town, thanks to my green and yellow mini truck, a.k.a. the Rust Bucket. I've had the truck for over 20 years now. And Martha, even with her occasional problems, was still the most reliable thing in my life. At least she'd been the most consistent. I looked over at her. Martha's wheel well rust had gotten worse over the winter. Salted roads had a tendency to speed up oxidation. But lucky for me, Greer knew how to keep her in top running order. Greer was also the father of my boss and friend, Parker. My heart picked up the pace the way it always did when I thought of Parker. I was currently living over his garage in a small studio apartment. As much as I wanted independence and a place of my own, another reason this house was so important to me was because I needed distance from Parker. It was hard working with a man I had feelings for when I knew nothing could ever come from them. Living right next to him made my heartache almost unbearable. Merle pushed up his thick glasses and shook his head. I have another place in town that's cheaper if this doesn't suit you. What Merle didn't understand was that I liked the tall columns out on the porch and the ornate gables. There was something about this house, a certain charm that I wanted to preserve, to make mine. Besides, my pit bull Smooshie needed room to run, to be free to stretch her thick legs. Frankly, I needed the same. As a were-cougar living in a human town, I didn't often have the privacy needed to shift. Smooshie barked and yipped with manic energy. I looked over in time to see my 80-pound brown and white pitty leaping around after an orange and black monarch butterfly near a patch of milkweed. We'd had a warm end to winter, and spring was a couple of weeks away. Even so, seeing a butterfly this early in March was unusual. Smooshie leaped again, her whole body twisting in the air. I smiled. I really loved that dog. I'll be fine, Mr. Peterson. I have plans for the place. I hope a bulldozer's involved, he muttered. I didn't say what because I'd heard him loud and clear. My excellent hearing was the blessing and curse of being a Cougar-shifter. I could also smell the remnants of his lunch, a burger with bacon, grilled onions, and blue cheese. Buying a house on an empty stomach was no bueno. I turned to him and said, Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I appreciate you taking a chance on me. Greer says you're okay, then you're okay in my book. The older man smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling into small canyons. Don't mind the ghosts. He grinned now. Parker had tried to talk me out of the place. He'd said it was haunted. His expression had been so severe that I tried not to laugh. Not because I didn't believe in ghosts, quite the contrary. It's just that I grew up in a town with way scarier paranormal creatures than spirits. Besides, the ghost angle had allowed me to get the place at a steal. No one wanted to live in a house where people disappeared and were never seen from again. Except me. If it's all right, I'd like to hang out for a while, just to get some ideas and stuff, I told Merle. Sure, he said. I'll have Jock Simmons send you copies of the contract. We'll get things finalized this week. It's okay that I get the trailer moved over and stuff now, right? Of course. The place is yours. Just need to dot the I's and cross the T's, but as far as I'm concerned, you are home. I smiled. Sounds good. When Merle left, I pulled out my phone and made a call. Hayes? I got the house, I said when my BFF answered. OMG! She materialized and hugged me hard. That's amazing! Smooshie's barking grew even more excited, almost verging on a frantic hysteria as she danced around Hazel, going up on 2 feet but not quite jumping on her. Will you muzzle your beast? A squeaky voice demanded. A red squirrel climbed Hayes to get away from my pity. She's just saying hello, Tiz. I scratched Smooshie behind the ear and she leaned her thick body into me, her tail whacking the back of my thighs as she panted her pleasure. Hazel Kinsey is a witch, and Tizzy, a squirrel, is her familiar. They were both my best and only friends when I was growing up. Being short and skinny in a shifter community was the same as being weak and useless. I'd never wanted to stay in Paradise Falls, but the death of my parents had made that choice for me. I'd had to drop out of high school to support my little brother, and I stayed until he died. It still hurt to think of Danny. There was nothing left for me there once he was gone. Is this it? Tizzy asked. She made a chittering sound of disgust. What a dump! Tiz! Hayes crossed her arms. It just needs a little TLC, and maybe a little... She wiggled her fingers. No magic, I said. Not even a little. She's probably worried you'll blow her house down. Tizzy jumped to my shoulder. Not that it would take much. Did you find this place in Deader Homes and Gardens? Ha ha, very funny. I thought so. Tizzy pulled an almond from somewhere on her furry person. I didn't want to know from where, and began to chew. I like all the trees, and oh, look, squirrels. 2 gray squirrels ran up a mature maple. I rolled my eyes. Hayes, who was taller than me by 6 inches, put her arm around my shoulders. You'll make it a real home, Lily. I have every faith. Thanks for lending me the down payment. She smiled. I know you're good for it. She gave me a squeeze. I'm kind of scared, Hayes. My BFF put her hands on my shoulders and stared down at me. Why? I'm not sure I can make it out here. By out here, I meant in an entirely human town. Well, mostly. I'd never had to hide before, and I wasn't sure I could keep it up. Aside from the fact that I'm a fish out of water, more like a cat out of the litter box, Tizzy snarked. I ignored her. I didn't even finish high school. I don't make enough working at the shelter to afford a mortgage and food. Shifters burned through calories like fire burned through a month-old Christmas tree, and I needed a lot of protein in my diet, too. Have you checked out the price of beef lately? It's ridiculous. I could spend a paycheck on red meat alone. Have you thought about getting your GED? Maybe taking some classes at the local college? I don't know. You're the smartest person I know, Lily Mason. It would be a shame to let all those brains go to waste. Hazel believed every word she said. I could smell the truth on her. It was a gift passed down from my great-great-grandmother on my mother's side, who happened to be a witch, amazingly enough. I only found out in October that I wasn't pure shifter, and some dangerous magic back home had triggered my ability as a truth-sayer. Most people wanted to be truthful anyhow, and my power allowed them to open up to me. It didn't always work. If someone wanted to hide a secret bad enough, they could resist the compulsion to come clean. I nodded to my friend. I won't give up. Good, because you've been happy here, Lils. More happy than I've ever seen you before. She squeezed my shoulders. Humans are good for you. Yeah. I could hear the roar of a dually truck engine less than a mile away. My boss is coming. You better get out of here. The boss? She made the sound like the. The one who basically rescued you and swept you off your feet? Stop, I said. Seriously, you need to go. Hayes's phone played Bare Necessities from the Jungle Book. Shoot, that's Ford. She looked at the screen. It's a 911. There's been trouble since Halloween between the shifters and the witches, and with spring right around the corner, it's not getting any better." She kissed my cheek. "Call me if you need me." "I'll be fine," I told her, and gave her a quick hug. "Bye, Lils," Tizzy said as she circled her witch's waist and climbed up her back. "Next time leave your beast at home." I knelt next to Smooshie, who happily wagged. "She is home." Tizzy stuck her tiny tongue out at me. Hayes gave me a wistful smile. "Tell Loverboy I said hello. He's not—" They disappeared before I could finish my protest. Parker's big black truck was throwing dust up as it came down the gravel drive. The truck ground to a halt about 30 feet away. Parker rubbed his hand over his dark hair before he opened the driver's side door and stepped out. He was average height, about 5 feet 11 inches, which was still 8 inches taller than me. I'd always been a bit of a runt. He had a broad chest, muscular arms, and crystal blue eyes that nearly undid me every time he looked my way. His dog Elvis, half pit bull, half horse, jumped out of the truck after him. The large silvery blue beauty hugged his body against his master's legs. As a PTSD dog, Elvis had been trained to pick up on Parker's body language and put himself between Parker and stressors. Turns out, I was one of those stressors. I didn't want to make Parker's life difficult, just the opposite. It was the reason I needed my own place. "What you doing out here?" I asked, shielding my eyes from the sun as he approached. An easy breeze carried his scent to me. I fought the urge to run into his arms. We were friends, nothing more, no matter what my shifter libido wanted. "I have to run into Cape Girardeau for some supplies, and Dad asked me to bring you out his toolbox, shovel, and plaster scraper." He reached into the bed of the truck and lifted out a red bifold-topped metal box. "It's so I can bury the bodies." Parker froze for a moment. A crooked smile played on his lips. "You need help? I got a hacksaw back home." I laughed. "These will do." I took the shovel and scraper from him. I followed him to the porch where he set the toolbox down. "There you go," Parker said. He rubbed his hands on his jeans and put them in the pockets of his windbreaker. "Tell Greer I owe him some pie." It was a joke between us. Parker's dad and I shared a love of food and a pastry. "I'll let him know." His low voice always made my stomach jittery. Smooshie and Elvis sniffed each other, with Smooshie getting her full nose right up his butt. I didn't want to begrudge her the formal dog greeting of an old friend, but automatically I said, "Stop that." Smooshie cocked her head at me, gave Elvis one more nose goose, then moved away. Thank heavens Elvis tolerated Smooshie. He outweighed her by at least 30 pounds. "You sure you want to live out here?" Parker asked. "It's going to take a lot of work to get this place livable." "Buzz is moving in with Nadine. He's going to let me put his trailer out here to live in until I can get it all fixed up." Buzz was actually my uncle and was a good 40 years older than me, but since we were both shifters, we could pass for nearly the same age. Nadine was one of the few friends I'd made since I moved to Moonrise. She was a deputy sheriff for the county, and she was very much in love with my uncle. Unfortunately, she could never be Buzz's mate. Oh, he loved Nadine. He probably loved her as much as she loved him. But Buzz was a were-cougar, a shifter, the only other non-human in town, besides me. Shifters only mated with other shifters, with only a few exceptions, and all of those exceptions were paranormal mates. There was a distinct aroma that developed between mates, and when a shifter caught the scent, it was for life. That couldn't happen in a shifter-human relationship. It was genetically impossible. But since Buzz had never found his true mate, he and Nadine could be happy for many years together. Sadly, it would eventually end, and that was another reason to not get involved with sexy humans like Parker Knowles. I felt an aching pain in my heart. My kind lived a very long time, hundreds of years sometimes. Not sure anyone is built to watch the people they love grow old and die. I know I'm not. "So Buzz is taking a big step, huh?" Parker smiled, his blue eyes lighting up with mischief. "He seems more like the rambling kind than the settling down kind. Nadine has a way of getting what she wants. She reminded me a lot of Hazel. Nadine was very straightforward, a lot of what you see is what you get. I admired her bluntness and her honesty. I smiled at Parker. A melancholy feeling that I'd grown accustomed to experiencing washed over me. I knelt down, feeling the sudden need to hold on to something, in this case, my pity. Smooshie put her wet nose to my ear and licked my cheek. I patted her. "Teresa holding down the fort today?" I asked. She was Parker's other paid employee. He could only afford to have us both on part-time, thanks to an anonymous donation that rolled in every month on the 5th. Teresa Simmons, who had started as a volunteer, had worked at the Pitbull Rescue Center for over 2 years. Parker also had several volunteers who spent time socializing the rescue dogs to get them ready for rehousing. Keith, Jerry, and Emily are in today, so she has plenty of help. Good. I hated leaving you short on a Saturday. I know that's when you run your errands, but it was the only time Mr. Peterson had opened to meet with me. Life happens. He glanced over at me, his blue eyes locking on my gaze. They don't get much better than Merle Peterson. He gave me my first job. Did you know that? No, you never told me. Yeah, he likes to hire local teenagers for odd jobs. He'd hire me occasionally for things like deck building and roofing, summer work. It was long hours, but a decent paycheck. My first job, I clerked at a convenience store. I worked at nights and some weekends. I'd had to quit school to work full-time, and the Valhalla Gas and Go was the only place that would hire an 18-year-old dropout. I'm glad you're putting down roots here. He looked around. His upper lip curled a little in disgust. Even if it's this place. The house has good bones, I told him. That's not a house. It has doors and windows and rooms and ghosts. Parker, facts are facts, Lily. He walked up the front steps as if drawn, his voice like that of a tour guide. Randall Dilly, who built the place back in 1908, hung himself in the living room. Another owner, Lincoln Edwards, was killed in a combine accident in the 1940s. The whole family disappeared from here in the 80s. And there hasn't been someone living there since Old Man Mills died in the upstairs bedroom 2 years ago. Let me guess, I mockingly gasped. He was murdered! Nah, natural causes. Parker paused. Or so they say. He let it hang there as if to imply there were more sinister reasons behind the old man's death. What he didn't realize is, because of my witch ancestor's gift, I could smell bull poop from a mile away. Anyway, I knew a little about John Old Man Mills. The property had been held in escrow as the court tried to find a blood relative somewhere to inherit. No one came forward, so the property was sold to Merle, who'd sold it to me. You want to go on the supply run with me? Parker asked. No thanks, I smiled. Another time. I want to get in and measure the rooms. I need to figure out where I want to start with this place. Besides, Buzz is bringing out the trailer today. That's fast. His lips thinned. Well, thought I'd ask. And I appreciate it. To lighten the mood, I asked, do you think the ghost took him out? Who? Old Man Mills, of course. I think he's one of the ghosts now. He moved in close, his tone ominous. Some say when the moon is full and the wind is right. You can smell his farts on the breeze. I giggled. That's terrible. I will not flirt with Parker. I will not flirt with Parker. It had become my mantra. A mantra that failed 50% of the time. I knew Parker liked me. A lot. I could scent his attraction. For whatever reason, his desire for me smelled like honey and mint. Crisp, refreshing, and exciting. But he deserved to be with a woman he could grow old with, and I had a terrible feeling that if I allowed myself to love Parker Knowles, I wouldn't be able to give him up when the time came for me to leave Moonrise. I could only stay for so long before people would start asking questions about why I didn't age. And the first rule of integrating with humans was to never let them know you were different. Not unless you wanted to be hunted down like an animal. Humans had two impulses when it came to things they didn't understand. Kill it or dissect it. I didn't want either of those things happening to me. Chapter 2. After Parker left, I grabbed the toolbox shovel and scraper and took it into the house. The peeling blue ivy wallpaper in the living room gave the house the haunted feeling Parker had mentioned, but it was the most updated of all the rooms. It had drywall, not plaster, which meant, unless there was mold, I could save money by just stripping the wallpaper and painting in there. Even with all its many failings, I already loved the place. I felt as if I'd finally found a home, a place to call my own. I set the toolbox down. Getting started would be the tricky part, but I wasn't afraid to work hard. I would need to hire a contractor to tell me which walls were support walls and which ones were room dividers. The place could literally tumble down around my ears if I decided to get sledgehammer happy. Smooshie's ears perked. She stared at the door with expectation, then began to bark the moment I heard the gravel spinning under the tires. I had great hearing, but Smooshie's hearing was incredible. I went outside. I grinned as I saw Buzz's blue pickup pulling his 12-by-60-foot trailer onto my property. Behind him was a brown four-door car, its hazard lights blinking as they made slow progress up my drive. When they got close, Buzz stopped, stuck his head out the window, and shouted, "Where do you want it?" I pointed to a piece of flat ground about 20 feet from the house. It was the side closest to the well and the power meter. I'd have to pay someone to come out and hook up the water, electric, and run a pipe to the septic tank, but I'd put money aside for that purpose already. 5 men, 2 in their 40s or 50s, one that looked to be in its teens, and 2 who looked somewhere in between, got out of the brown car and began methodically getting down to the business of helping my uncle land the trailer. They worked efficiently to get it blocked at the wheels, unhitched and level. Buzz got out of his truck and grinned. "It was a scary drive." "I bet." The other men joined us. "Who are your friends?" "Lily, these are some of my lodge brothers. This is Nick Newton." Buzz gestured to one of the older men. His hair was a dirty gray, which meant he'd probably been a light or dark blonde before age changed the color. His hazel eyes were warm, and the deep leathery lines around his mouth and eyes marked him as someone who'd spent his life in the sun. "He owns Handy Contractors, and I've known him long enough to know he'll only rip you off a little." Buzz's grin matched Nick's. Nick shook my hand. "As opposed to a lot," he added. I could smell tobacco on him, but his fingers weren't stained yellow, so I put him at under half a pack a day, maybe less. "This is Paul, Jeff, Mark, and my nephew Addie." He cuffed the younger man behind the ear. "Addie's the Moonrise varsity quarterback. The kid has a great arm on him. Next year, if he can stay out of trouble, he'll have his pick of colleges if he can get the team to state." The older man beamed with pride at his nephew. Addie was the youngest of the group. I'd seen him before at the Cat's Meow. He was usually surrounded by a couple of buddies, including James Hanley, a real jerk of a kid, and fawning over teenage girls. I'd heard the name Addie at their table, but I'd always assumed it was one of the girls. "Addison," the teenager said, automatically answering my unasked question. His cheeks reddened. "It's a family name. I'm used to Addie, though." I gave him a sympathetic smile. "It's nice to meet you, Addison." The young man gave me a glance that was decidedly grown up, so I gave him one back that conveyed a "when hell freezes over" message. He blushed again. Paul was Paul Simmons, late 30s, early 40s, less gray than Nick and shorter, but well-built and handsome. He was a plumbing department manager at Hayes Home Improvement Center. I wondered if he was related to Jock Simmons, the lawyer Parker had used when he'd been suspected of murdering Catherine Kapersky. I hoped not. I didn't have much use for Jock. I believed he beat his wife, Teresa, the other woman who worked for Parker at the shelter. In my book, any man who puts his hands on a woman is despicable, but a man who hits a woman he vows to love is not only despicable, he's disgusting. "I've heard nice things about you, Miss Mason," Paul said. I wondered from who. Buzz wouldn't go out of his way to talk about me. He was a private person for obvious reasons. I peered up at Paul. "It's all true." They all chuckled at the small joke, and the introductions continued. "Mark is the new guy," Buzz said. Mark Stevens was the 4th guy. Mark, it turned out, was an electrician by trade. I've been back here for 2 years, and I graduated from Moonrise with Jeff here. Doesn't that count for anything?" He laughed and shook his head. "When do I get to stop being the new guy?" "When another new guy joins the lodge," Nick teased. "I was the old new guy," Buzz added. The last fellow, Jeff Callahan, was Parker's age, it turned out. He and Mark had both graduated high school with Parker. Jeff had a beer gut that hung over his belt, which he sincerely needed, since he had no butt to hold up his jeans. He was an accountant, which surprised me. I usually thought of pocket protectors and thick glasses when I thought of someone into numbers. This guy looked like a good old boy and smelled heavily of marijuana. My brother used to smoke it, so I was intimately familiar with the scent. I smiled, though, when I realized Buzz had brought me a contractor, a plumber, an electrician, and, well, I wasn't sure how Jeff's accounting skills would come in handy, but it felt like Buzz had stacked the deck in my favor. I can't thank you all enough for helping Buzz get the trailer parked and leveled. I wish I had a working kitchen. I'd invite you in for coffee or something. Buzz is paying us with a free meal tonight. It's my turn to bring dinner for poker night. Yep, no kids, no wives, no bosses, Jeff said, nudging Buzz. He looked at me. No offense, ma'am. He raised his arms. I noticed he had a couple of rubber bands around his arm. It reminded me of my dad, who would take the rubber bands off the mail when he got it and put them around his wrists until he could move them into his desk drawer. Most of the time he forgot. My mom would snap him with them every time she passed him. I loved watching the two of them together. None taken. Now, if I were your wife, I raised my hands in a shrug. Then I'd be sorry. Now that's the truth, Nick said. Hey, Jeff said defensively. We all laughed. It was nice. It was a community. My community. Lily, Nick said he'd come out and inspect the house for you if you want. He can give you a good idea of what it's going to need. That's great. I really need to know what walls are load-bearing. I want to expand some of the spaces. I guess I'll have to deal with wire and plumbing as well. Paul piped in. Come by Hayes when you're ready. I'll give you a good deal on plumbing supplies. And maybe a little help installing? Paul grinned. Maybe. Thank you. I beamed at Buzz. In the 5 months I'd lived in Moonrise, these humans had made me feel more welcome than I'd ever felt growing up in a town full of shifters and witches. No problem. Hey, Nick added, tell Parker I really hope he can make it to the celebration Saturday night. There's a celebration. Coach Thompson, Addie said, my football coach. He's retiring this year, and the school is having a banquet for him. They want the entire '09 state champion team to present him with a Lifetime Achievement Award. Lots of folks coming into town for it. The teenager didn't seem very enthused at the prospect of losing his coach. It must be hard losing him right before your senior year, I said. Addie looked up at me, his expression grim. Nick laughed, though. I've been that man's right hand for 15 years. He's a great coach, but I have my own ideas of where to take the team next year. So Nick would be the new coach. The kid forced a smile at his uncle, but it was easy to see he wasn't thrilled about having Nick as the new head coach. I'm sure it will be great, I said diplomatically, then changed the subject. I really do appreciate you all coming out here today and for the offer of help. When Buzz's friends finally crawled back into their car and left, he put his arm around my shoulders and turned us around to look at the house. Home sweet home, he said. I'm proud of you, Lily. My parents were long gone now, but when Buzz said that to me, I heard my father's voice for the first time in 18 years. It made my eyes water. Thanks. You okay? Yes. I'm just really glad to have found you. Me too. Buzz stared at the thick trees off in the distance. That'll be a nice place to run, he said. He was talking about a 4-legged run, cougar style. The lovely large plot of land and the isolation of being surrounded by trees and wide-open farmland had been a big selling point, ghosts or no ghosts. Did you know John Mills, the guy who died here? I asked him. Yes, Buzz answered. I heard he got pretty senile there toward the end. Dementia took him hard. Poor guy. He'd had no family to help him. Parker says the place is haunted.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?